In this video, we're gonna take a look at 10 PlayStation 4 games that came out earlier on in the PlayStation 4's lifespan. So if you've picked up a PlayStation 4 in the last year or two, these may have been games you missed out on. Specifically, we are looking at titles that released from the PS4's launch in 2013 all the way up to the end of 2015, so anything after that won't be mentioned. If you guys enjoyed this video, let us know in the comment section down below and we could definitely do a part 2, because there are a lot of great games that came out early on in the PS4's life that some of you guys might not know about. With that being said, let's get right into this. Resogun. Why not start off this list with a game that was actually a PlayStation 4 launch title, and Resogun kind of snuck under the cracks as a PS4 launch title. Many were looking forward to games such as Killzone Shadowfall and Knack, and there were a lot of other third-party titles that turned out okay, but many would say that Resogun was the best game of PlayStation 4's launch, and incredibly enough, it was actually given out as a free title to PlayStation Plus subscribers. Resogun was a title by Housemarque Games, and if you know Housemarque, they've created some great games, and Resogun is arguably their best. It's a real treat in terms of audio and visual presentation, so definitely check it out if you haven't, and if you've liked Housemarque's prior works, Resogun is gonna be right up your alley. DriveClub. DriveClub was a game that was actually supposed to release on the PlayStation 4's launch, and it was gonna be a PlayStation Plus title as well, just like Resogun, but it saw a lot of delays, and it wasn't released until late 2014, but it turned out to be a pretty good racing game. Obviously, with PlayStation 4, the racing game franchise that's synonymous with PlayStation is Gran Turismo, but we didn't see a Gran Turismo game years later until Sport. But DriveClub did come out early, and while it wasn't a perfect racing game, it was very good in terms of its amazing visual, sound design. There were some issues here and there, but over time it's just gotten better and better, and now there's DriveClub VR as well, so if you want to check that out, you can. But for those of you just looking for a solid sim racer, DriveClub is a solid one to pick up. Dust: An Elysian Tale. Dust was a game that released on the Xbox 360 way back in 2012, but it didn't come to PlayStation until 2014, but this was such a good game that you could let that fact slide. Right away, when you look at Dust: An Elysian Tale, it is incredible from a visual standpoint. It's got a solid story, the gameplay is good, it's just a very well-made game. Obviously, it was released as a budget title, so it's not this expansive game, but it is a very good, smaller-scaled experience, and if you find it on sale, and it goes on sale often, I would highly recommend to check out Dust: An Elysian Tale if you have not yet. Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Assassin's Creed is one of the most iconic franchises in the gaming world, bar none. However, after the colossal failure and release of Assassin's Creed Unity in 2014, many were not quick to jump on the following year's game release in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and that's for good reason. Many gamers got burned on Unity, why go back and play Syndicate? But that actually turned out to be very unfortunate, because Assassin's Creed Syndicate was a great game. It still stuck to your typical Assassin's Creed formula, but it did refine some things, made exploration a lot faster, and the story was great. It centered around twins that really played off one another, and their interactions were great, and the overall story was great. If you're a fan of the Assassin's Creed formula, we're talking pre-Origins, then Assassin's Creed Syndicate is a great game, and I would highly recommend you to check it out, especially at this point. You can get it for pretty cheap.
I hate you.
We're fast friends now, aren't we?
I hate you.
Be quiet.
Disgaea 5: Alliance of Vengeance. Disgaea is definitely one of the more niche JRPG franchise, but man, you've got a lot of content behind these games. If you get invested to a Disgaea game, you can spend well over 100 hours on them. There's just so much to do, and some of the battles take a very long time, and there's a lot of replayability. With the Disgaea games, obviously from a technical standpoint, they're not as strong as a lot of other titles, especially it being a PlayStation 4 game. It still looks very similar to the earlier Disgaea games, but if you can get past that fact, and with JRPG fans, that's something you can usually get past, then Disgaea 5 is going to offer you a very good game with a great story and a lot of humor and a ton of content to really sink your teeth into. It's still held up a little bit in terms of pricing, but you can find it discounted for a decent price.
Combo
attacks, unique skills, class skills, magic, and magic change skills. There are many enriched, gorgeous special skills. The great amount of skills totals over 400. That's a new...
Need for Speed Rivals. Need for Speed Rivals was another one of the PlayStation 4's launch title, and it really filled that racing game void that DriveClub didn't give you, but NFS Rivals is very different than DriveClub in the sense that it's very much an arcade racer, not a sim racer. But Need for Speed Rivals was really the last great Need for Speed game. It harkened back to a lot of the gameplay elements from Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, and that was an awesome game. And along with that, you've got some great visuals and intense gameplay. Best of all, at this point, you can find Need for Speed Rivals really cheap. In one of the recent PlayStation Network sales, the game was available for just $5, and at that price, NFS Rivals is a definite pickup and much better than the following Need for Speed titles. If you want a Need for Speed game on the PlayStation 4, this is the one to grab. Transformers Devastation. Transformers Devastation was actually developed by Platinum Games, one of the most notable studios in gaming today. They've worked on some awesome action games like Bayonetta, Vanquish, Nier Automata, and Transformers Devastation was another great one. I wouldn't say it holds up as one of the top tier Platinum games, however, if you're a fan of Transformers, if you're a fan of the license, it is really gonna cater towards you because it's got some great presentation and some awesome fan service. And overall, the game is very fun, and if you go into it not being a Transformers fan, you can still have fun with it as an action title. Unfortunately, the game was removed from digital storefronts in December 2017 alongside a bunch of the other Transformers titles because of Activision's licensing deal with Hasbro expiring, so that is unfortunate, but obviously you can still pick up the game physically. Tearaway Unfolded. Tearaway was actually a PlayStation Vita title, and it was one of the better PlayStation Vita games. It was helped develop by Media Molecule, who are known for Little Big Planet and the upcoming Dreams. Tearaway is a very charming game. No, it's not very challenging, however, in terms of visual style, characters, and world design, it's a very good game, and it makes a solid transition over to the PlayStation 4 and the DualShock 4 controls. At this point, this is another game you can get pretty cheap, and it's probably a game a lot of you guys missed out on, so if you're a fan of Media Molecule's charming titles, Tearaway Unfolded is gonna be one you'll enjoy. Sound Shapes. Sound Shapes is a very simplistic side-scrolling platformer with a musical focus. The game also features the ability to create levels and share levels with other users, and it's got some great music to it. Again, just like Tearaway Unfolded, this isn't a super in-depth game. However, if you just want a game to jump in and play and have some fun with, Sound Shapes definitely offers you that. And by the way, this game is a very easy platinum trophy, so for those of you that are trophy hunters, this is a game you'll want to check out. And it's a solid pickup, especially considering this is a game you can get for extremely cheap. And finally, God of War III Remastered. Remasters have been all the craze this generation, but I feel like a lot of gamers forgot that God of War 3 actually saw a remastered entry onto the PlayStation 4. Maybe God of War 3 was at that point where the God of War formula was getting a little bit stale, but it's still a very fun, high-octane action game. It's not a very lengthy game. If you're used to the God of War formula, you can complete the game rather quickly in 6 to 7 hours, but the gameplay is so fun, especially at this point because you can get it so cheap, and because the new God of War is on the horizon. While it is very different from God of War 3, why not familiarize yourself with God of War and Kratos before the release of that game, and that game looks fantastic. However, I would recommend to check out God of War 3 Remastered, and this is another game you can find it pretty cheap, especially during a PlayStation Network sale.
I will have my revenge!
So that wraps up 10 awesome early PlayStation 4 titles that you might have missed. What do you think? Are you gonna check out any of these games? There are a lot of great games that I'm sure you've at least missed out on a few of them, so make sure to check them out. Sound off with your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.